I'm going to share my experience of hosting my ASICs. I kind of give you some of the pros and cons, something that you should know about, whether this is something you should look into. So I'm going to first start off with, what the miners that I actually chose to use and things of that sort. So the miners that I have right here are Bitmain KA3s, all five of them. These miners specifically mine the Kadena cryptocurrency. It is a layer one blockchain that I personally do believe still has a ton of potential, even despite the fact that the price of Cadena has gone down quite substantially. Though I do personally see a nice recovery coming in the near future. So I personally have been trying to mine and hodl these coins as much as I can throughout the bear season. But now that things are starting to turn around, especially for alts, this is definitely the time to be getting as many coins as you can, given the price points and also the network difficulties for various altcoins. So my experience with this as a whole was not what I was expecting. It definitely didn't go as smoothly as I was hoping. And so here's my story. So essentially back in the summer of 2024, I decided to pick up these guys. I did pick them up used, which I will get into that later, why that was probably the biggest mistake. And essentially, I ordered these online. I got them shipped here, and then I had searched for various different hosting centers that could run these guys. A couple things I was trying to keep in mind was the actual cost it's going to run them, as each facility is going to have a different electric rate. The lower the rate, the more you're going to profit from these, as you have a lower overhead expense. On top of that, too, another thing was making sure that these would be safe. I was already a bit skeptical about hosting my expensive ASIC miners with a person slash a company I've never met, never don't know much about, other than the fact that I just started researching it at the time. So it took me a little while to find a ASIC company that I felt comfortable truly giving this to have him run for me. Now, I will say in this video, all the experiences I share, I have honestly not much bad to say about the hosting company itself. More so, I've had issues with the miners. So I first drove these up to the hosting center that I decided to go to. I'm located in the Midwest, so we get very cold winters. And I knew that even though this would be wonderful to run in my apartment to keep it nice and warm, I did make a video about running ASIC miners in your apartment. Make sure to check out that video over here. But other than that, I will say that this one specifically, being that these run off a 240 volt, they needed something with a little bit more infrastructure. An apartment with a gas stove ain't gonna cut it. So I decided to bring these over to the hosting company who could run them for me. The idea is that I was able to pick these up for pretty cheap because, like I said, I got these used. So I was able to get them at a really nice price point. And I figured because, hey, since the prices are down, network difficulty is down for mining, meaning you're going to earn more of these coins as there's less people trying to share that rewards. So with that being said, it was kind of like I saw them as a good bang for buck, being that's the project that I'm most invested into, as I figured I could also mine these coins very easily because the network difficulty has gone down the last couple months. I thought it'd be just a great investment. At first, it seemed like that, but then over time, I found that wasn't so much the case, and here's why. Within a couple of months of me actually running these ASICs, I was having several issues with, quite frankly, all of them. The most frequent issue I was having is that just out of the blue, these miners would go offline. And at first, I was like, well, maybe it's just the hosting company because, hey, they probably restart the miners every now and then. I know specifically where I ran them. This is maybe a Midwest issue, but perhaps it could go for anyone that is experiencing cold winters, is that the electrical infrastructure of where these were hosted at, not necessarily the building, but the city itself, actually didn't have enough electricity to go around. So there would be times during the day that these would go offline. That was a pretty big issue because that basically cut into my profits. The amount I spent on the electricity was a flat rate I pay per month, regardless if these were on or off. So I found oftentimes that these miners would not be earning anything, and I'm still being charged for the electric aspect of it. Oftentimes, I found that these miners themselves would go offline every couple days. I would reach out to the hosting companies, shoot them an email, just let them know, hey, the miner went offline, if we can get that restarted. They supposedly had a system in place to help automatically restart them if they noticed that the miner had gone offline. I don't know if it's a KA3 thing or if it's the system itself that was being used to manage these. It never would restart them or barely ever restart them. I almost always had to reach out manually and write an email. And of course, anyone who's in mining would understand that you're trying to make this as passive as possible. And having to shoot an email every couple of days, well, yeah, it only takes like a minute at most to do. It took away my focus from what I needed to focus on in my day to day life. And I have to put it towards attention towards these miners that I thought would just be plug and play. And I've discovered that as just simply not the case. There's a little bit of maintenance that I found by having to have these hosted, as if these were in my own apartment, I would just flip the switch, turn it off, turn it back on, and we're good to go. But because these miners were hundreds of miles away from me, I just simply couldn't do that. I always had to reach out to them, which to me kind of didn't make it the best experience in that regard. And then following that, I then within about the third or fourth month in of using these miners, one of them actually went offline and wouldn't turn back on. I wasn't necessarily sure what was going on because, the miners were already, pretty frequently going in and out. And I thought maybe this is just another one of those scenarios, shoot another email and then we're good to go, right? But that wasn't the case. The miner did not come back online no matter what we tried to do at that time. He tried updating the firmware on it, tried actually various different firmwares. None of them seemed to solve the problem. So I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll get this sent into Bitmain and have them take a look at that. The KA3s are still to this day in 2025. These are still the newest and best units for Kadena. So I figure, Bitmain would probably be able to take a look at these, especially considering the cost, where many people paid tens of thousands of dollars for these, which at the time that I actually bought these, that wasn't even close to the price I paid. But nonetheless, it's an expensive miner. I would suspect there would be some type of support, especially being that there was a Bitmain facility that could actually do maintenance on these only one state away from me. So I was like, okay, well, it doesn't seem too bad. Let's get shipped off. But they'll fix it up. I figured it cost some money to get it fixed. I mean, I don't expect it to always be free. Um, but even once I did get them to Bitmain, what ended up happening was nothing. I heard nothing for about 1 to 2 months, with several emails reaching out to Bitmain just trying to get an update on the status of the miner, regardless of trying to get it back and up and going again. They had reached out 0 times, until finally, weeks later, they had finally replied to the host and told them that the unit was scrapped and that they would not want to fix it. The issue they reported was a hash board. Okay, I get it. Look, things break, it's used equipment, and I totally get it, but why did they not even attempt to fix it? It's still the newest unit on the market. Yeah, maybe they're not selling a whole bunch of these anymore because there hasn't been as much demand for Cadena lately, but nonetheless, it's their product. They should be the ones that could fix it, you'd think, out of anyone, right? And that they just didn't have any interest. So I do warn, if you are looking to host, especially used ASIC, but technically this goes for any ASIC for the matter. If you plan to get it hosted and something breaks down, you should expect a long turnaround. Bitmain, out of all the companies, should have been quick, considering they have a US based facility. Whereas other brands, you would have to ship it to China just to be able to have it fixed and then have them send it back. And that typically takes months in many cases. But even with this being US based, it was almost no different. It was a very long turnaround, minimum communication. It pretty much seems like they haven't cared to try fixing it. So what ended up happening is they sent it back, and eventually they sent it back. And the host just held on to it for me. So I was down one miner at the time. So, I still got four. Okay, yeah, I guess I could deal with one miner going out because, hey, it's used equipment. Things are gonna happen. It's gonna break down. I get it, right? That happens. But within a week later, the same thing happened, but to the second miner. And I'm thinking, seriously? I mean, I have only had these miners going for a couple months now, and they were sold to me from various sellers. I mean, what are the odds that they're all starting to go bad? And same thing. We sent it off to Bitmain again. Same exact thing. They did not respond for like a month, and then finally got back. And can you guess what they said? It was scrapped. again. And that was just like, are you kidding me? They clearly do not care about trying to get these miners up and going. Probably unless it's like a S21 XP or something like that. Like they don't care about these older miners, even though this is still the newest generation that exists and is still the best miner for all of Kadena as of right now. You'd think they would fix it, but they again they don't. So they sent that one back too. So now I'm down to three. And at that time, things started to stable out for a little while, thinking, okay, I'm down two miners, but I still got three. ROI is going to take a little bit longer down since I got to calculate these two into account for that. And for a little while, things were going smooth. I was getting daily payouts from the pool that I had these assigned to. It was making pretty decent money because we had that nice pump a couple months ago where Cadena went around $2 a coin, which actually made all these Cadena miners decently profitable. They were actually making a couple bucks in profit per day. And I was paying personally a 10-cent kilowatt rate at the host. I know there's better rates you can get out there, but just where I'm at, that was one of the best rates I can get with a facility that I personally would trust. I did not personally want to send my miners out of state. I was not comfortable with that personally. You can make your decision whether you feel like it's a good idea to ship them out of state, but I wanted them close enough to where I can drive to them, but not too close that I would host them in a bad area, so to speak. I wanted them to be safe, just in case if things really took off and all of a sudden these appreciated quite greatly to where they are a bit of a target for getting robbed, essentially. So from there, with the three miners that I did have going, I was able to accumulate over the lifetime that I had ran all five of them. I accumulated 5,000 Kadena coins, which at this point in time, each coin is worth 50 cents. So do the math. You can see I've made a little bit of money, but I'm still, as of right now, I am underwater. So why exactly are these other three with me? Well, simply put, the same thing happened once again. Within about a 2-month period afterwards of having relatively stable operations with these three, with the occasional miners going in and out, I started to have the same issues again. The next one, third one went out. At this point, I'm starting to get like, okay, is there something going on with the host? Is there something going on with the miners? I had done a lot of talking with the host himself, and to me, he's always been like a very reputable guy, and I don't think it's in his best interest to deceive his customer, being that he's making pretty good money from me having to get these hosted, as these are some energy guzzlers right here. I was paying him well over 1,000 a month. I don't think he necessarily wanted to see me go. But what we've discussed is there's probably a decent chance that there might be some type of lifespan pre-programmed into these miners, because within that 2-month period after, all five had gone down and none of them were working anymore. After the second one I sent into Bitmain, I at that point was pretty much done with sending it into them. I decided that I'd take this into my own hands. I personally, on one of the miners had or what I thought to be a power supply issue. I ended up ordering a brand new power supply for the unit. I installed it myself. The miter turned on, and everything seemed good for about an hour to two, and then it went out. And it turns out it was not the power supply, it was likely another hash board. It seems like the hash boards they're putting in these things are not that reliable, or at least, maybe for the age that they are, which was personally a good lesson for me that I would like to share with you is that if you're buying used equipment, you need to actually put maintenance into your calculations for your ROI, because it does not seem like these things are built to last for whatever given reason. Maybe I got the bad hand. All five ended up being duds, but I don't know. With them to all basically die within the same time frame, it just seems really suspicious to me. Again, I got these from all different sellers, so it's not like it was just one bad seller gave me a bad batch. The chances of them all being bad, it just seems kind of, I don't know, fishy. Now, I personally think that my experience would have probably been a lot better had I had bought new units. Though for me, I was personally trying to mine Kadena versus other coins like Bitcoin, which have greatly higher difficulties, and the chances of you creating a super high ROI off of it is quite low, just due to the fact that the network difficulty had been or has been growing so greatly with Bitcoin. So I was really focused on altcoin mining, And if I were to go back, I would have tried to get a brand new unit. I think I would have had just much better experience of more than likely not having the same thing happen where used units go out. In many regards, I knew that was some of the risk of buying used equipment. You don't know how well the previous owner took care of it. They may have just turned it on and let it sit, never cleaned up once. You never know. Granted, I mean, the ones I ended up getting in the mail always seemed to be, or at least visually, in pretty decent condition with just a little bit of wear and tear, but nothing where I'm actually kind of concerned about its condition itself. They always seemed like these were just fine. They were good enough to run. But I guess that just wasn't the case, or at least not longevity wise. So, I mean, my experience, I have to say, just wasn't the greatest. Had personally no issue with the host itself. I think overall, if you are in a position similar to like myself, if you live like in an apartment or even a single family home, for example, that you just don't have access to that 240 volt, which is required for many of these full scale miners, hosting, in my opinion, is honestly a really nice because it was great when it was working because I would just check my wallet, I get my daily payout. And it just seemed like this was truly passive income for the days that things were working well, and it truly made mining so much more enjoyable. I think with a new miner, hosting would be a great thing to do. I would do it again if I had different miners. It's just right now with the profitability of Kadena miners, which is the vast majority of my ASIC miners, it doesn't make sense to have them hosted right now for the rest of them that I do have, being some older gold shells, until the price of Kadena goes up to make them profitable. The way I look at this whole situation is a bump in the road. You can't let things like this truly deter you away from mining, if especially if you have like a great passion for it. I've been doing cryptocurrency mining since early 2017. You can see on the channel I've been posting for quite a long time, and it's something that even with something like this where I've lost at this point well over $10,000, it hasn't steered me away from wanting to keep going. That's the thing about this game, is that you're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, but as long as you win more than you lose, I guess that's all that matters in the end. But yeah, I would love to hear your experiences as well. If you've personally done hosted mining before, definitely let me know your experience down in the comments below. Make sure to like this video too. It's a great way to be able to share my message and my experience with other people who may also be looking to get into something like this. And this video might seem a little bit like a boo-hoo on the hosted mining, or boo-hoo Kadena, or boo-hoo ASIC mining as a whole, but it's actually not. I just want to simply share the experience so you have things that if you're looking to do it yourself, you can have some foresight into, that just to help you better prepare for something like this. Because I think it is still a great opportunity. If you have an ASIC and you need someone to run it, consider reaching out to a local host near you. I'm personally recommending something that would be close to you versus shipping it out of state. But that's just a personal preference. You don't have to do that. You can do whatever makes most sense for you, and I hope you do that. So that's pretty much all I have for this video. If you did like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, like I was saying earlier. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.